Welcome back. With the U.S. National Championships still visible in the rearview mirror, let's do a special on that today. Today, I want to tell you about several things I learned at the National Championships and the changes I will be making to my skill set and equipment as a result. Let's get to it. I'm sure many of you are already aware of how I finished in the standings this year. After 3 consecutive years of finishing in that same position, I'm considering renaming the channel to Almost Winning in the Wind. All jokes aside, I'm sure some of you are quite curious about the conditions we encountered at Camp Atterbury. If I had to describe them in comparison to the rattlesnake range that I normally shoot on, I would classify the winds as light, slightly frisky, but mostly smooth. I will note that the majority of shooters spoke of experiencing condition-induced vertical dispersion from the wind. I certainly observed some of that and was able, by the end of the match, to anticipate some of the vertical changes. Bear in mind that this was my first time shooting on that range and was somewhat unprepared for the vertical in the conditions. There were a lot of lessons learned on the range during the week, but I'll focus on 3 areas in this video: shooter skill, self-awareness, and tactics. Let's start with our skills discussion. Let's talk about shooting mechanics. Now, when I'm talking about shooting mechanics, I'm speaking of the total human to rifle and equipment interface. First, let's talk about the interface with a recoil pad. In my opinion, you must, if you want to shoot well that is, create a consistent amount of contact with the recoil pad for every single shot. I'm not advocating free recoil here because some rifle designs don't appreciate free recoil. Instead, I'm telling you to practice your recoil pad contact so you can get it right by mere feel alone. Now, while I'm talking about shooting the rifle, let's talk about operating the scope for a moment. I think it important to know instinctively how to adjust your scope without looking at the knobs. Let me explain on how I interface with that conceptually. I look at the turrets as being attached to screws, because they are, and picture in my mind that the bullet is moved by the opposite end of the screw from the knob. So when I tighten the elevation screw, it pushes the bullet down on the target. I saw more than one competitor turn a scope turret the wrong way during this match, resulting in catastrophic losses of points and some full target misses. Once again, there is no substitute for practice. Now, this last one will tick some people off. But here goes. We all need to up our skills and attitude about pulling and marking targets. This year was the first year that the majority of competitors had not pulled a target since the prior national championships. In my opinion, electronic targets, while quite convenient, create a trap that we, as a community, do not want to fall into. As our collective target pulling skills fall, we will be forced to accept electronic targets for all matches, despite their inherent limitations. NRA Competitions Division, are you hearing me? We still do not have a clear, concise standard in the rules for accuracy requirements. And the electronic targets have to be certified by NRA now, but I haven't found where NRA has certified any. So we can't even have a registered match with electronic targets. This is silly in my mind. We need to have a clear, concise rule that says the target may not have a deviation of more than X for however many shots, not a generalization of 1/4 of an inch that we can't even decide if that's extreme spread or standard deviation. Let's get it right, let's get it clear, and let's get back to business. Honestly, I think we need to really up our electronic target accuracy game before we do that. Many tournaments are now won and lost by single points or X's. A 1/4 inch error on just one shot can change the outcome of many matches and deprive true winners of their winnings and deprive people that would have lost of the lesson. While I'm thinking about pit pulling skills, we are bringing more and more shooters into the sport that show up at major matches with zero target pulling experience. This creates a disadvantage for the shooters that are squatted with that new shooter. While I'm sure that all of you are aware I can shoot well, I actually take more pride in getting it done right and fast in the pits. And before anybody comments about it, no, I did not have a slow or inexperienced puller this year. So, this year, I'm going to find a way to get some pit pulling practice for me to keep my skills up between major matches. There are still some clubs out there that hold matches without electronic targets. We should all be seeking those out as an opportunity to get our pulling skill set honed. All right, let's move to our next focus area. If this video is bringing you value, please like and subscribe. If you would like to support our video creation, consider checking us out on Patreon. Let's talk self-assessment now. In this case, I'm talking about an error I made that cost me dearly this year. The advice here is to be honest with yourself about how both you and the rifle are shooting. In my case, I've spent more than a year making excuses to myself for the performance of one of my rifles. This one rifle hasn't performed consistently up to my standards. Even immediately before this match, I made a change to the load trying to get it to stop producing vertical flyers. Unfortunately, I learned on the morning relay of day 2 that I had failed miserably. Conditions were about as dead calm as I have ever seen, and the vertical flyers became very apparent, shaking my confidence in my rifle. Knowing that I had lost confidence in the rifle, I had two choices. I could either give up and lose big, or do something about it. I had my backup rifle at my disposal, so I went that direction, giving me a great deal of confidence that culminated in a charge back into second place in the waning moments of the match. In high-level matches, having confidence in both yourself and your equipment is critical to success. You must be able to determine, in real time, if your equipment meets your standards or not, and have strategies or tactics in place to compensate until such time as you can make a change to improve your situation. In my case, I switched to a different rifle, starting with a relay that only had 2 sighters. Knowing my zeros allowed me to confidently shoot a first sighter X with the backup rifle. If you want to learn more about my methods for maintaining zeros, leave a comment below. All right, let's finish this one up with a discussion of tactics. To do this, let's switch over to an analogy for a moment, shall we? If you were a military commander, would you not think that allowing your opponent to maneuver unchecked would be a poor choice? In rifle shooting, I see the wind as my opponent. Allowing the wind to maneuver unchecked can be a terrible choice, especially on a range where the mirage has disappeared and the other wind indications are in disagreement with one another. That was a situation faced during this championship. Now, I'm not advocating going all lemming and jumping off a cliff, but sometimes you've got to pull the trigger with your best guess and adjust from there. In the end, the bullet is the final judge of the wind condition. Now, this is not the only range I've been to that displayed general wind qualities that allowed a fast shooter to walk their shots back and forth across the 10 and X rings with impunity by simply observing the point of impact of the prior shot. This generally only applies to string fire, but I found that pair firing with another reasonably fast shooter can work similarly. Once again, hear me clearly. I'm not advocating mindlessly chasing the spotter, but simply observing that chasing the spotter can be quite productive under the right conditions. What I am advocating here is getting your shots on paper when the conditions are favorable and not wasting time, allowing the wind to change without getting a hint from a bullet flying through it. From this, I'm going to make a few changes to my shooting. I'm going to reintegrate dry fire into my practice and really get my recoil pad pressure nailed down. I'm also going to do occasional specific practice for scope adjustment. Obviously, I need to get that one rifle sorted out. While I'm doing that, I need to create a methodology that allows me to objectively grade a rifle's performance, and then set red lines in the results that, if crossed, trigger leaving a particular rifle at home. Lastly, I've decided to shoot more of my practice at full match pace. In the process, I might get an opportunity to show you what that looks and feels like. Keep an eye out for a new match video format going forward. Well, I think that's enough stuff for today's video. I need to get my new bridesmaid dress put away. If you have a question that you would like answered in a Q&A video, email me at winninginthewind@gmail.com and I'll get it scheduled in. Until next time, shoot straight, and I'll see you on the range.